Welcome everyone for our APP free webinar series. This week we are doing a colour ARV horse racing group demo. Now I know some of you are familiar with this and others are new, so this is sort of an end-to-end process that will let you know how this all works if you're new. And if you've been involved for a while, there's a few things near the end where you can see how we've been going. So our agenda for today is I'm going to tell you a little bit about me because you probably haven't heard from me much before. So my name is Shane Stone, and I'll get into a little bit more about my background in some coming slides. I'm then going to go through a colour ARV prediction primer to let us know what the process is and really get you ready for the main section, which is a learn by doing section. So the learn by doing section is I'll send you out a form. You'll go through the process of making a prediction, fill in the form. I'll then collate the results, show you our prediction, and we'll watch a race live for feedback. I'll then move into some historical results from our horse racing group here at the Applied Precognition Project. And then we'll move into some questions and answers. I want this to be a fairly informal session today, so if you have any questions as we go, I'm happy to take those. We do need to stick to a bit of a schedule though so that we can see the race live. So can I just check that you all know how to raise your hands? So that will be sort of down the bottom in your... okay, there we go. One from Ashley. Yeah, one from Karen. Yeah, one from Teresa. There we go. It's all happening. You've also got the chat there if you want to type anything into the chat. So if you could type into the chat right now where you're dialing in from. I'm dialing in from Sydney, Australia. So it's just after dawn here. Where are we? St. Charles, very good. Atlanta. Scottsdale. North Carolina, South Florida, Utah, Virginia. Excellent. So lots of different places. Good to see you all here today. Oh, Germany. Oh, that's right. You know, I had an email with you earlier, Helene. Yes. So welcome. It's good that you've been able to schedule this. It's fairly late at night there, as I understand it. So China. Wow. I wasn't expecting to see that. Very good. So move on to a little bit about me. So as I said, my name is Shane Stone. I was trained as an electrical engineer specializing in digital signal processing and communication systems. During that time, I also did some solar car racing. So I've crossed Australia twice in both directions as a race strategist in that work. I also did some research into wastewater treatment control systems using laser light scattering. I am now, in my day job, an enterprise architect, so I plan major IT system implementations. My current remote viewing interests are capital allocation based on remote viewing predictions. So what that basically means is how you allocate your money to either place bets or trades on the market, and error detection and correction protocols. So some of you have been around a while may be aware that remote viewing isn't 100% foolproof. So my area of interest there is in looking at ways we can improve that accuracy using some of what I learned there in the digital signal processing realm. I am also the host well, recently become the host of the Applied Precognition Project's Talk with webinar series. So if there's anyone out there that you know that you would like to see on that series, please get in contact. And I am also the horse racing group manager. So our horse racing group is known as First Groove. We do race predictions in two countries, so the United States and Australia. We do those alternate weeks. Sometimes when we've got special races coming up, we will flip the weeks around a bit, but generally it's just alternating between the 2 weeks. And that creates a lot of interesting things, like when the tasking is sent out. The Australian races happen sort of less than 24 hours after that tasking comes out, whereas the US races are sort of more like 36 hours or so. And that gives, I guess, a good spectrum of testing things like time between feedback and the tasking to see if that helps improve our accuracy. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the color ARV prediction primer, which is going to let us know how we use colors to predict the winner of horse races. Now, before we get into the actual color prediction process, there's a few things to understand. It's mostly sort of around how the horse races work and how the betting around that works. I'm not condoning placing any bets at this point in time. As I said, my personal interest is on capital allocation. If the capital allocation is not correct, even if you have a winning method, you can still end up losing money. So if you don't know what you're doing, maybe small bets for fun, don't bet the house. So that's just a disclaimer there. So the first bet type we have is a win bet. That bet is placed on the horse that we think will finish first. That bet usually pays the most money. When I say usually, there are some horses that are so extreme favorites to win that sometimes some of these other bet types can outperform that bet. We then have the place bet, which is placed on the horse that to finish first or second. That pays less than a win bet. Then we have a show bet, which is the horse finishes first, second, or third. And again, that pays less than the win or place bets. Finishing in the money means a horse finishing first, second, or third. So essentially, there is a bet type that would have paid us back. We have the post position, which is the gate or barrier number where the horse will start the race. So as we'll see when we fire up the live race, the horses line up in gates. The gate that is closest to the barrier is post 1, and then it progresses post number 2, 3, 4, etc. Saddle cloth number. So each of the horses have a cloth that sits under their saddle. That cloth has a number on it. In the United States, that number is the same as the post position. For the Australian races, that number is based on a draw that happens sometime prior to the race. So just checking in, is all that clear, or any questions around that part of the primer? We're all good? Excellent. So now we get on to the associative remote viewing piece. So how many of you, with a show of hands, are familiar with associative remote viewing? Okay, excellent. We don't have to get into that too much. So I guess our traditional associative remote viewing that most of us do is called binary associative remote viewing. So what happens is there are two possible outcomes. It's usually something like the stock market goes up, the stock market goes down, team A wins, team B wins. And what we do is we have two photo sites. one photo site is associated with, let's say, Team A winning, the other photo site with Team B winning. The remote viewer then goes off and does their session, drawing the feedback photo site. We then match that drawing and the description of the photo site to either photo site A or photo site B, and that forms our prediction for what's going to happen. This is a bit of a challenge for horse racing because horse races have between 5 and 20 horses, and any horse can possibly win. So any of you that have done this for quite a while would know that even with binary associative remote viewing, matching the viewer's output to one of those two outcomes can be challenging at the best of times. And so expanding that to between 5 and 20 outcomes makes it almost impossible to judge using that method. So what we've done with the first group is develop a new method that makes it much, much easier to look at that high number of possible winners. So what we do is we use the saddle cloth numbers to predict the winner. So each of the saddle cloths is assigned a color. Those colors are standardized, so they're the same every week. Some races, the horses don't actually wear that color, but we still use that association. So it's the association that's important, not the actual color the horse is wearing at any particular time. So for example, in the races here in Australia, pretty much all of the horses wear sort of this dark green color, whereas many of the races in the US have the actual assigned colors, although I have seen races where, again, they just wear a standardized color. So just remember, it's the color association that's important. And what you're trying to do is review the feedback color that you will be provided, not the actual color that's on the horse. So is that part clear? Any questions there? Okay, we're all good. Now, so this is what the end-to-end process looks like. So towards the end of the week, I select the target race. There's a bit of science that goes into that. So the idea is to get a race that has a decent amount of interest. So that's usually has a high purse, the amount of money that can be won on the race. Again, there's sort of US versus Australia. Try to make it sort of in the most accessible races for everyone. Some of the more obscure races are a bit hard to find and do things like see the race feed and place bets. And also I try to moderate the number of horses in the race. As you can imagine, even with associating colors to the horse, after about 8 to 10 colors, you start getting into this situation where you've got, a light blue, a dark blue, a royal blue, a dark green, a lime green. So I try to keep the number of horses under control just to make it a bit easier for the viewer. That said, as we'll see later, our results suggest that is not a factor, which is an interesting finding. Our form then gets sent out via email. Today I'll be sending that form out in the chat so that we can all go to the form there. And basically, there's only two fields to fill in. One is your name. The other is the color that you have selected. You then do your session. We'll go into a bit more detail about what that looks like. To perceive your feedback color, you then complete the data collection form, send that back in. I then collate the results from all of the viewers and then circulate that back out to everyone as the prediction for the race. The race then happens and we find out which horse has won. We then uh, send out the color feedback, and that's where you'll see, I guess, the color that was associated with the horse, and you should do a bit of a feedback ritual there, and then the process ends. So, any questions around the process itself? No, excellent. So today we're going through this entire process inside an hour. This process normally takes, as I said, between 24 and 36 hours when we do it each week. So, how do you actually make a prediction? It's actually pretty simple. You relax and clear your mind. Um, then you write down the first color that comes to mind. I close my eyes. Not everyone closes their eyes. That's sort of up to you, the actual method. You're in control of that. But that's the general process. And the last part is don't second guess yourself. It can be easy to think, was that purple, pink, etc., and get yourself into this sort of stress state about what did I actually see. Just write down whatever you saw, and the statistics will eventually sort it all out for you. Any questions about the process? Not particularly complicated. Yep, Carla?
Okay, so you didn't mention anything about setting your intent before you sit down and relax your mind. Is that important also?
It is, yes. So that's sort of in my hints and tips section here. So down in that bottom right section there, I've got what's called create a ritual. And so part of that ritual is setting your intent that you're going to perceive the feedback color. Other things for me, I sort of go through this relaxation process where I close my eyes. I then open my eyes briefly and then close my eyes again to perceive the color. I do that because I need a trigger to say now is when I want to perceive the color. If you're just sort of sitting there in, let's call it an infinite meditative state, you don't really have a trigger for now is the right time to see the color. So that's how I create a trigger for myself. For others, that trigger may be that you just do an ideogram on paper, or it could be that you tap yourself on the forehead. Whatever it is, that sort of is the trigger for you, and really create that ritual end to end. So, amongst other hints and tips, we have a calm mind. So there's different flavors of this. It can be meditation, binaural beats, progressive muscle relaxation, whatever it is, so that your mind isn't racing and flicking all sorts of images through your head while you're trying to do this. The other one is neutral background. So a dull neutral background prevents after images. So for example, if you close your eyes now after looking at the screen, you can probably see some after images. We don't want that because that can interfere with perceiving the color. The third one is immersive feedback. So when that feedback image comes through, spend some time immersing yourself in that, sending the message back to yourself at the time you made the prediction. So that can be something like bathing yourself in the feedback color, or it can be just concentrating on the color with the intention that this is the color that I was perceiving back when I did the session. The fourth one is to learn. So pay attention to things like where the color shows up when you're correct versus where the color shows up when you're incorrect. How long the color takes to appear after the trigger. Are you slightly off in how you're perceiving the color? Things like that. So that's all sort of an inner reflection thing that you need to sort of operate at that higher level to do I guess, meta analysis of how you're actually going through the process. The other one is training drills. So I use Russell Targ's ESP Trainer app every day to do training drills on colors. The ESP Trainer app has 4 color choices, gives you instant feedback. You do 24 color drills in one run, and it lets you know sort of a level of how well you're doing with respect to being above average. So now we enter the learn by doing section. So we're going to make a prediction on a race happening during the webinar. So I'll just walk you through what the form actually looks like, and then I'll paste the URL into the chat for you. Okay, so everyone seeing the form there? Is that a yes? Yep, excellent. So really simple, name at the top. If you don't like sharing your actual name, it can be your gamer name, whatever it is you like. I'm not particularly fussed about collecting personally identifiable information, but it's just a way to track over time what your performance looks like. So if it's gamer26, that's fine. If it's your actual name, that's fine. I use my actual name. Whatever you like to enter into that box, please keep it consistent over time. The other is simply to choose the color. Now, as you can see, today's race has 5 horses. That was a factor of which races were available in our time slot, as well as which race I can actually get a feed of during this session. So I'll move that back out of the way and paste that into the chat for you. Okay, so can everyone please try to open up that form and just give me a thumbs up if you can successfully open it. Excellent. Okay, so now in keeping with some of the hints and tips, I'm giving you a neutral background. So please now go and do your session. I'll do it also. Should be nice and quick. The race feed starts in about 7 minutes, so don't take too long. I'll give you sort of about a minute to complete this process. When you do this, normally take as long as you like. If everyone can give me a thumbs up when you're done, that would be great. Okay, I can see 7 responses. Still got a couple underway. Is there anyone not sure how to do the process? Okay. 9 responses. Okay, so I'm going to have to cut it off there so we can stay on schedule. I will just stop sharing my screen for a moment while I collate the results. Would anyone like to come off mute and just speak about your experience while I'm looking at what our votes are for today?
So,
Jane, do you mean, oh, someone else, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I was just going to check if by experience you meant how was it like doing it live in this session?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, did you have any trouble? Um,
n-
was the color clear to perceive?
yeah,
Those
it was.
types of things.
I was surprised by how quickly and how clear it was because my trigger, and I did not even know that I really had a trigger, is that the moment if I look in my inbox and there's your email, Shane,
Yeah.
then there's the color.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And you were talking about triggers, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to get an email in my inbox. What's going to be my trigger? But just that you showed the form, and that was my trigger. So that worked out really well.
Excellent. That's great. I never thought of my email being a trigger. There we go. But yeah, good point. That is something that everyone has, right? So okay, so I've collated the results. So if I fire this back up, get us to the right spot. Okay. So our race today is at Santa Anita Park, race number 2. Uh, this is what our collated results look like. So 4 votes for number 5, Hypergummy. 3 votes for Peanut Butter Bomb, number 4 in yellow. 2 votes for Yours Sincerely, number 1, red. And 1 vote for number 2, Counterbalance. No votes for number 3 in blue, Himika. So let's see how we go. I will bring up the live feed. They should be loading into the gates like right now. So let's see how this all goes. Can everyone see the race feed there? Thumbs up. Excellent. It is all working as planned. This part can be a bit tedious because horses, being horses, don't always behave themselves. So we could be waiting a minute, we could be waiting 5 minutes. So let's see how we go.
They're in the gate.
Oh, we're ready to go? Okay.
And they're off in the China doll. Hypergamy broke sharply inward, but is able to go straight to the front. Yours sincerely in counterbalance. Counterbalance takes second. And Hamika, the favorite, is at the back of the field. So it is Hypergamy who will set the tempo, tracked by counterbalance, with yours sincerely hugging the rail in third. And Hamika is fourth, but just 3 lengths covers the entire field. They move on to the backstretch behind Hypergamy, 2.5 length advantage. Counterbalance is second. Down on the inside, it's yours sincerely and Hamika. Heading toward the half-mile pole. Hypergamy is loose on the front end. She has it now by 3 lengths. Counterbalance has been second the whole way, and yours sincerely inside of her. Another 2. Hamika is still at the back as they move to the far turn. Hypergamy has been left alone throughout. Counterbalance, yours sincerely at the rail, gets a little nudge now as Hamika starts to inch up outside of them, taking third and on the move. 1/4 mile to go. Hypergamy in front. Hamika on the outside and counterbalance in between them. Yours sincerely is last, top of the stretch, and Hypergamy is digging in. Here's counterbalance running a huge race in between. Very confidently handled too is counterbalance, who has opened up in the late stages. Counterbalance scores nicely in the China Doll. Hypergamy was second, Hamika third, then yours sincerely.
There we go. So, what is our winning horse for today? Let me just stop the share so we can do feedback.
And Shane, I have a question. One of the
Yes.
horses did not come out of the gate, or was it scratched ahead of time? What happened with that?
That is an excellent question. Let me look that up for you. That was a surprise to me too, which is, one of the challenges of doing this live, right? So, what actually happened there? It was scratched. So what that means, for anyone not familiar, is the horse was withdrawn from the race prior to it starting. So if I share my screen again, this is your feedback. So again, in keeping with some of those hints and tips, just spend a moment now to send that feedback back to yourself in the past. Okay, so now if we sort of just go back and have a look at what our predictions were, we had 1 vote for white. So Helene, well done. Congratulations, everyone. Give Helene a clap. We did see that green was leading for most of the race, but unfortunately for those, including me, who picked green, not correct for today. And, as I spoke about earlier, part of my interest in remote viewing at the moment is looking at ways of, making things more accurate over time. But one of the interesting things here is we got the very clear signal that the favorite was not going to win, and it did not win. So that's an interesting thing to take away from today's live prediction as well.
What was the favorite, Shane?
It was the blue.
Blue.
Yep.
Interesting.
Let me just see what the odds were. $1.60 $1.72. So that means they had it in at more than 50% chance of winning. So we did pretty well, I reckon. What did number two paid $4.50. So for every dollar you bet, you would have won $4.50. Okay, so that's sort of our learn by doing section. Any questions coming out of this piece before we move on to some of our historical results and general questions and answers? Oh, must have been all very clear then. Oh, Steve, yes.
Yeah, does it
Shall I?
does it make
Yep.
sense to review the stats beforehand, or do you think that would skew the results of what color you choose?
I review the stats beforehand as part of that capital apportionment piece. So the actual calculation around whether or not to place the bet based on the historical remote viewing is complex, to say the least. I hope to actually write this all down one day so that others can reproduce it. But it's so if you look at statistics in general, the bookmakers' odds are in aggregate correct. So the favorite wins most of the time. The long shot doesn't win most of the time. There's a little correction that happens at each end of that curve where the favorite is actually less likely to win than the bookmakers' odds predict, and the long shot is slightly more likely to win than the bookmakers' odds suggest, but the bookmakers' margins are high enough to compensate for that little effect. Now, the interesting thing is, even though that is true, our remote viewing is an independent signal. So we essentially have, in this case, a 1 in 5 chance of selecting the correct horse. And as we'll see when I get to the historical results, we do pretty well in certain circumstances as well. So we're in sort of this statistical environment where both of these things are true at the same time. And so doing the maths to combine all of that together involves either some machine learning or some fudge factors or whatever you want to call it. But it's an interesting area that I'm looking into. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking of other alternative ways that you could work this. In
Yeah.
other words, maybe, I mean, because I pick green as well. So it looks like there's 4 people that pick green. So
Yeah.
if this
So
was like task first and then we evaluated everything, looked at the stats, kind of regrouped, talked about things, maybe, and then set our intention for one particular horse after that as a group collectively, and then tried it
yeah.
again to see, I don't know.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to get into is what I'm calling misattribution of color. So just because people are incorrect, it doesn't mean that their session is not useful. So with a larger number of horses, there's also like an orange that shows up. And what can happen is the actual winner is orange, but the viewers will do something like call it red or yellow. And as you keep track of those statistics over time, you can see that the viewers are misattributing the color. And it still becomes a useful signal in trying to work out what's going to happen. Again, that's another layer of complication, but it's interesting. And I think that ties in with the research that context is important. So, you know how you've got those illusions about, this thing's in light and this thing's in dark. It's sort of a cube type illusion. And these two colors are actually the same, but they look different. We perceive color in relation to the context it's in. And the way we provide feedback here is the color is absolute. And so I think we need to be open to the way we perceive color as having an effect on how this all works. And the fact that someone is consistently misattributing the color and that being useful, I think we should still think about that as being, I guess let's call it a win, a good thing, right? Trying to force the true color when the actual session is useful, I think that places undue stress on everybody, and just be happy that you're contributing to the overall statistics to make sense of things, I think is how I'd put it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So now we sort of move on to some of those historical results. So we've done 190 races so far. There's been sort of, I think, a couple of cancelled races due to weather conditions, and one where we got all the timing wrong. So I think 187 races where we actually provided feedback. Over time, there's been 50 viewers participating. We generally have about 14 or 15 viewers submit sessions in any 1 week. Really like to build that out so we can get, more statistical power to our predictions. So, if we could get 20 or 30 in any 1 week, that would be awesome. That's 2,260 individual sessions over those races, of which there's been 254 hits. The expected number of hits was 234, so it's doing better than expectation. But for those of you who understand statistics, the p-value is currently sitting at 0.09 across all races. For those of you that don't know what the p-value is, the p-value is the probability that this happened by chance. So this is saying it's a 9% probability that this result has happened by chance. The threshold for it being statistically significant is generally regarded as 5%. These statistics also don't consider individual performance. So I guess, as with something like a running race, performance differs vastly. If you were to compare, say, Usain Bolt over 100 meters to me, many orders of magnitude different in covering that distance. It's very similar with remote viewers. There are some people who are very good and others who are average. Also, we have what's called the sheep-goat effect, where certain people consistently get the wrong answer, which is also statistically significant. But in aggregate, when you present the statistics in this way, that sort of averages out the people who are doing very well. The other thing that it doesn't take into account is the color misattribution that I was talking about earlier. The spreadsheet I use to track all of this is keeping track of the color misattribution and using that in the actual probability calculations. Still working through fine-tuning that because, as I said earlier, that's very complex. But the raw data there is being collected around, the actual result was red, but the viewer picked, let's call it yellow, for example. Now, there is something interesting that's going on, though, which is what I want to talk about in the next slide. So the next slide talks about a seasonal pattern that I've detected across those 190 races. So when I was looking at the p-value over time, what I saw was that it was periodically dipping down. And I've gone, well, why is that? And then I sort of lined that up with when those dips were occurring. And it turns out that the statistics for the spring and autumn carnival are different than the summer and winter carnivals. So I've had to bundle spring and autumn and summer and winter into those buckets because, as I said earlier, we're doing races across the United States and Australia, and the seasons are flipped depending on, which hemisphere we're in. But what we see is that the spring and autumn racing carnival is very, very clearly predictable, like very much different than the summer and winter carnival. There's some other maths we can wrap around that to say how confident we are in that. But I think if you just look at the graph and see how hard that drops down towards a p-value of less than 0.05 from very early on, they're very clearly different. So I guess there's a lesson there for some budding analysts. Always graph your data. If you don't graph the data, you don't know really other things that might be going on. So it's really graphing that data that will allow me to pick up on this pattern. Now, the curious thing is no idea why this is happening. So there's a few things that could be in play. One is, let's call it the underlying dynamics of the system. So there is something different around the spring and autumn races than the summer and winter races. So that could be things like race fixing or incorrect handicapping of the individual horses. It could be, let's call it atmospheric interference. So for some reason, spring and autumn, whatever interferes with the signal is different. Or it could be something within the viewer. So spring and autumn are generally more pleasant than summer and winter. So it may be that people are just happier in spring and autumn, and that's what's causing it. So don't really know what's happening, but I'm pretty confident that it is happening. And again, that's useful intelligence as well that's come out of this work. So any comments on that slide for anyone on the call? I know it might not make sense to everyone, but hopefully that makes sense. JT?
And I just had a quick question. So has anyone tried to do any kind of correlational analysis to try to identify what might be going on in terms of like looking at geophysical indicators, solar cycles, any of that type of?
No, haven't got to that level yet. So basically what's going on is keeping track of all of this has hit the limit of what I can do in Excel. So I'm in the background building a system to, keep track of this with proper code. And once that's all up and running, doing those correlations will be a lot easier. But if you're interested in volunteering to do some of that analysis, I can anonymize the data for you and send that on and see what you can do with it.
Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat.
Any other questions or comments? No, excellent. So now we move into sort of general questions and answers. So what would you like to know about First Groove or Color ARV? Some of the things we've tried and didn't work, some of the other interesting things that we've seen over time.
If nobody has any questions, I'm going to keep on plugging away. I have a few.
Keep going. It makes it interesting.
So have is there a rationale that you guys have formally identified for the target being your own feedback versus the more dynamic, luminous actual races?
That's actually reasonably simple. It's because, as I said earlier, particularly for the Australian races, the horses don't always wear the colours. So I have been thinking about sending out links as part of the colour feedback, so you can have that richer feedback. But certainly, I think having that luminous event to find in space-time, if you like, is helpful. The other challenge we've got is that a lot of the race feeds are either geo-blocked or behind paywalls or behind sign-up screens. So actually finding that rich feedback that I can provide consistently across both Australia and the United States is not easy. So I do provide like the actual race details. And so as part of that ritual I talked about, it may be worth wherever you're located and whatever systems you have access to do that richer feedback. But it's just a bit of a challenge to do that consistently across both countries at the moment. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you for that. And one last question. Have you tried to execute this whole scheme with races that are further away in time, i.e., next week or a few days in advance versus the 24 to 36 hours? I'm curious if there's a threshold where
Yeah,
that.
so the current iteration, no. The previous iteration, we were looking at time as a factor, right, Teresa? How far out were we looking? Do you remember?
Well, we did a study, and in that case, still wasn't, it wasn't a long time, but it was several days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was still the same week. So
Yeah.
one of the problems you've got in trying to do longer time is that um, the participants in the race are often only published a couple of days before the race. It's not often known a long time beforehand. And so, doing it weeks out can be challenging.
Yeah, those post positions don't get up until like Thursday for a Saturday race. So it
Yeah.
doesn't give you a lot of leeway.
Yeah. So we can extend the time by a little bit, but not a lot.
Okay,
Um,
understood.
yeah, that said, actually, let me see. Have I got my magical? I haven't got my magical spreadsheet open, but let me show you something. This is off script at this point, so this could all go horribly wrong. So there's a few other things I didn't go through, just in the interest of time. Now, snap. Okay. For some reason, I have lost my tabs. Tabs. Oh, this is essentially what I wanted to show anyway. So this is the curves for Australia versus the US over that same time period as I showed you for the sort of spring, autumn, and summer, winter periods. As you can see, I haven't done the actual numbers on how different they are, but they're regularly crossing over each other, right? Between Australia and the US. So it would appear at the outset like time is not particularly important because the US races have sort of a longer lead time on them. And also the country doesn't seem to be particularly important, which is another interesting finding. So if you combine that with the summer autumn thing that we talked about, the seasonality, it looks like the country is also not playing a role in that. How do I switch to another tab without being able to see my tabs?
Yeah, we did a study a couple of years ago about time, and it really didn't show we thought that the closer you were to the race, the better your results would be, but that didn't turn out to be the case. There's actually like a U-shaped curve where there's a period about a couple of days ahead of time that seems to do better, and then it gets worse, and then it gets better again. So we'd have to do a lot more research to really pinpoint exactly what's going on.
Yeah. And again, so this is more than 10 horses versus less than 10 horses. At the moment, more than 10 horses has more statistical power than less than 10 horses. So I guess that's understandable from the fact that if you assume that an effect exists, that if you have more horses in the race, it shows up easier. But again, it's not reaching the threshold for statistical significance, but you can see that greater than 10 horses at the moment is sitting a fair bit below less than 10 horses. Then we have by purse. So basically the median purse is 630,000 US dollars. Those curves are for below and above the median. Again, there doesn't seem to be a difference by purse. And that is something we also looked at in the previous study, right, Teresa?
Right. Yeah, because we usually went for stake races, which were the higher purse
Yeah.
races, thinking that
And we're
there's
still
more
doing that,
energy.
right? So that might be why this
Yeah.
doesn't show much of a difference. But,
Hmm.
you know, we're not really picking races with like a $10,000 purse at the moment, that
No.
they're all sort of in the hundreds of thousands, right? So
Right.
that might be why this isn't showing a difference. But yeah, so that's just some of the other curves that I've been looking at. So some interesting things going on there. I guess any further questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, Shane, I've got a question as far as using
Yep.
this method for other projects. For example, if you had 5 people competing for something, and the
Yep.
project manager would assign randomly a color to each one of the 5, and then doing this
Yep.
process for that.
Yep. So this is generally applicable to any multi-outcome event. So yes, it could be people running a race. It could be, let's call it presidential elections that I know is big on Polymarket at the moment. Yeah, anything with multiple outcomes. I haven't given it a go, but it's just been the horses because they're nice and consistent. They're there every week. Good selection to choose from. Easy enough to place bets, but yeah, lots of ways this could be applied. And you know, not even let's call it in the wagering area. It could be just anything that has multiple outcomes. You know, is tomorrow going to be sunny? Is it going to be cloudy? Is it going to be cloudy and rainy? You've sort of got three different outcomes there, right? So there are other things that you can sort of apply this to. Any further questions?
I think, like you were saying earlier, is when you've got like a lot of different choices, is when this is really handy, because it's hard if you're trying to do photos, it'll drive you crazy. You can't really do photos and choose. So it helps to have something to
it's
fall back
hard.
on.
Like even choosing between two photos with
Yeah.
most of the output I've seen is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're working on a study about that as well, right, Teresa? But
No, but when we first started out, we were using like all those different photos, and it made you
Yeah.
nuts. Yeah, it would make you nuts. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and it places a lot of overhead on the judge as well.
It
So
does.
for something that you want to do consistently over time, placing that kind of load
Mhm.
on someone who's volunteering for the position is quite a challenge, right? So to do photo judging across 14 or 15 people inside a couple of hours, that's a lot of load to put on someone.
Okay, well, thank you,
Cool.
Shane. If nobody else has anything, is there anything else you guys want to say?
I was just going to do a thank you to everyone.
Okay.
So anyone interested in joining the group, you can email me there at my email address. It's the same email address that was in the invitation for this meeting. So you haven't got to scribble that down. You can just look back at that marketing material. There's also the Applied Precognition page on the ARV site if you want to see what we're up to there. So thank you, everyone, for coming along to today's session. Hopefully, we will see you again in the future.
Right.
Thank you,
Right.
Shane.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Really
Have a nice day, everyone, or a
Right.
nice night for you, Helene.
I did want to
Must be
mention,
midnight there, is it? Something like that?
where's that in China?
No, Germany.
Oh.
Yeah. It
We
must be
are
getting late.
planning another webinar in April 19th. It's going to be on ARV Studio for those of you who are looking for an independent way to do remote viewing or ARV, including the lottery. It's a tool that Igor developed some years ago, so it's been around a while. So you may want to tune in for that April 19th. Okay, so 10 o'clock there in Germany. Cool.
That's not too bad. That's getting on towards my bedtime, but yeah.
Yeah, you going back to bed, Shane?
No, I'm about to start work for the day. So because I come from the future, it's already Monday here. So
There you go.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and
Okay,
see you
thank
again
you.
soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.